Response. Resuming debate. Reprise de débat. The honourable member for Edmonton Manning.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker. This motion calls on the government to amend subsection 95.1 of the income tax and section 5907 of the income tax regulations to specify that no business that is entitled to a special tax benefit conferred by Barbados under the Canada-Barbados Income Tax Agreement Act 1980 should be exempt from taxation because of a tax treaty. In essence, it asks the government to override the Canada-Barbados Income Tax Agreement Act. I appreciate the sentiments of the member who sponsored this legislation. It is refreshing to hear members of the Bloc Québécois with ideas for the benefit of Canada, to propose legislation that would increase revenue for the Government of Canada. That being said, I do not feel that this motion should be supported. The underlying premise would seem to be to score some political points and condemn Canadians who use foreign shell companies for tax avoidance purposes. Given recent publicity regarding the Canada Revenue Agency and the offshore tax havens, that is bound to be a popular topic. But popularity and good legislation isn't always the same thing. Just as tax avoidance and tax evasion are not the same thing. Canadians all want to do what they can to avoid paying tax that they do not owe. It is when they cross the line of the law into tax evasion that governments need to take notice and act. I think this motion confuses the two and seeks to condemn those individuals and companies who are doing something perfectly legal. This year we celebrate the 50th anniversary of diplomatic relations between Canada and Barbados, which was established on November 30th, 1966, the day Barbados became an independent country. But our relationship goes back much farther than that. The Canadian Trade Commissioner Service first established an office in Barbados in 1907. This long-standing connection explains in part why many Canadian financial institutions have long had a prominent presence in Barbados. Barbados and Canada have several bilateral financial agreements, including a 1986 Society Security Agreement, a 1997 Foreign Investment Protection Agreement, and a 1980 Double Taxation Agreement, which we are discussing today. As you are aware, Barbados is a part of Canada's constituency at the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. We have ties through the Commonwealth, sharing a heritage as former British colonies. I think that behind this current motion is the belief that its implementation would somehow magically result in more money back to the hands of the Government of Canada. This is not necessarily the case. There are plenty of other tax havens globally. I cannot see that. Should Canada decide to unilaterally alter this agreement, there would be any net benefit for our country. Those who are law-abiding will not be paying more. Those are hiding money from Canada Revenue Agency will, I suspect, find somewhere else to hide their funds. The matter is more multifaceted than is accounted for under this motion. Madam Speaker, the Canada-Barbados Income Tax Agreement Act was designed to limit double taxation and prevent fiscal evasion with respect to taxes on income and capital. It applies to residents of both Canada and Barbados. It was first signed in 1980 with an amendment in 2011. Amendment made at that time primarily to follow in the framework of OECD treaty models and to ensure holding corporations, trusts or partnerships that hold Canadian investments in real property and resource properties would be subject to Canadian taxation on sales of the shares of the holding corporations or the interests in partnerships or trusts. There is a general international tax principle that country in which immovable property is located should have the right to tax the gains from the disposition of such a property. The Canada-Barbados Income Tax Agreement Act is flexible with the intention to limit unfair and inefficient double taxation practices. I support this act. The Conservative Party supports this act. This motion to override the Act's provisions should be regarded skeptically. To suggest that Canada should unilaterally decide not to live up to an agreement we have signed is, in my opinion, irresponsible. To support the Canada-Barbados Income Tax Agreement Act is not to suggest support for tax evasion. In 2013, the Conservative government, in order to enhance the integrity of the tax system, created the Stop International Tax Evasion program, aimed at reducing international tax evading and avoidance. That the Canada Revenue Agency gained 3 times as much as new revenue than expected from measures introduced in 2013 budget is a tribute to the Conservative management. The Conservative Party has a strong, successful record of standing up to the international tax avoidance. Canadians believe in a fair tax system. All of us want to know that we are being treated fairly and equally under the law. While the Conservative Party frowns up tax evasion, it also upholds the view that this practice may be a response to unfavorable tax regimes within Canada. We believe that with fair taxation, there will be less desire on the part of some Canadians to look to other jurisdictions and to search for ways to avoid and evade Canadian taxation. Conservatives understand that when you make the tax rates fair, when you make the system easier to navigate, that encourages businesses to invest in Canada. When you increase taxes, such has been done with the recent payroll tax increases in the Canada Pension Plan, you discourage investment and you kill Canadian jobs. Investors, both domestic and foreign, are looking for a stable business climate where government understands the importance of allowing the private sector to lead job creation efforts. Creating an unstable business climate by, for example, unilaterally changing a long-standing international agreement is guaranteed to convince entrepreneurs that Canada is not worth the risk. I can see that the actions of this government, which has deferred the tax cut for small business to some mythical future dates, would cause many businesses to investigate opportunities in other jurisdictions that might provide more consistent tax policies. That Canadian corporations legally transferred a record amount to tax havens in 2015 can be seen as a resounding vote of non-confidence in the Liberal government. This indeed is a problem that should be addressed, but this motion is not the way to address it. Thank you.